Hello and welcome to another Discovery Day deep dive session. Today's topic, exploring transformational technologies using machine learning to prevent automated bots. This event is produced in partnership with Cequence Security. And if you're here, it's because you attended Discovery Day 1, which happened yesterday, and you watched the Cequence Security presentation there, and you indicated that you'd like to learn more and get an invitation to this deep dive session. So thank you so much for joining us. This event is all about getting your questions answered and helping you to learn more about what Cequence can do to help to protect you and your company's data. So with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. My name is David Davis of ActualTech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We want this to be educational. Of course, we encourage your questions there in the questions pane. Many of you have said, good morning or hello. We also want your technical questions. We'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the event. So keep your questions coming. To help encourage those questions, we're also doing a best question prize, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And then I also want to call your attention to the handouts tab. It's there that you'll find the link to the Cequence Bot Defense free trial, which you'll be learning about on the event today. That's a special link that you should check it out and try it out for yourself. Of course, you'll be learning about bot defense more, so stay tuned for that. But don't forget about that special trial link there in the handouts tab. And then finally, we have our best question prize, which I mentioned, for a $50 Amazon gift card. Prize winners will be selected and contacted after the event. And of course, you must meet the ActualTech Media prize policy. And of course, you also must ask a question. So keep your questions coming. And with that, I'm excited now to bring on our expert presenter. Welcome him back from day one, Mr. Matt Kyle, Director of Product Marketing at Cequence Security. Matt, it's great to have you back. Take it away.
Thanks very much, David, and thanks everyone for attending. As David mentioned, keeping in the theme of ActualTech Media theme, exploring transformational technologies, we're going to scratch the surface a little bit more about how we use machine learning to determine transactional intent that can then be used for prevention policies when you're battling automated bots. So this might be a bit of a recap for folks, but yesterday we went through this. So let's assume that you want to buy a PlayStation 2 for yourself or for your kids. So what you'll do is you'll watch for that PlayStation 2 announcement coming. You'll prepare to buy that item, perhaps using multiple browsers, multiple devices, tracking Twitter feeds, etc. You'll get there and you'll be stuck in a waiting room only to get a message that it's out of stock. What an automated bot will do is much the same thing, only they are working in tandem with an army of people. There's a community forums that track availability of these high demand items. They will then use automated tools, compromised residential proxies, and a variety of other mechanisms to pretty much execute the same thing that you were trying to do, but on a much larger scale. So you've got one person behind perhaps hundreds of browser entries trying to buy that item. And it's all being done using automation. So it's much faster than your keystrokes, regardless of how prepared you are as an individual. You're not going to be as fast as a computer, unfortunately. And what will happen is they will then succeed and then perhaps monetize that device on a gray market. So we saw it happen at the holidays. They called them glitch bots, and we're going to continue to see it happen as they become more and more sophisticated. So, what you're up against really is, we already went through this a little bit, so I won't go too far into it, is, it's really an army of people, right? You can do it, just use common search terms. Look for sneaker bots, and you'll find a large a community of websites that will help you execute the purchase of a sneaker bot. It's gotten to the point where it is now bots as a service. So you don't need to do the work anymore, right? You can actually find bots as a service where you subscribe to a particular bot to execute the purchase of a high demand item, and all the infrastructure, all of the things I talked about in the previous slide are set up for you. So it's really just making it very easy for anyone to execute a high demand purchase using a bot. And then what happens in there in the middle section when these bot attacks are happening is there's actually multiple variants of a bot attack being done. Your account might be taken over. There are fake accounts being created in preparation. There's content scraping that is done to collect the information about when the sale is going to go on. And then there's even enumeration attacks where they're tracking and looking for shipment information. So it has become much more sophisticated than it was in the past. In the past, you would have to know where to look on the web to find this information. You would have to do a fair amount of work on your own to execute these attacks. But now the tools, the infrastructure, and the credentials that you see there in the middle are all readily available and commercially available. So when you talk about retail bots specifically, you might say, well, a bot is executing a purchase for the retailer. So why should a retailer care? There's actually many reasons why a retailer or anybody should care, right? Bots are impacting the entire business. And this is not just for retail. Retail is an extreme case, but we see it in financial services. We see it in relationship applications. We see it in social media. It impacts the entire business. And this slide here is from a research report done by Forrester. If you read the mouse type on the bottom, you can see where you can find the whole report, but you get a sense for the different groups that are impacted by bots. Employees are frustrated because it becomes a fire drill that takes them away from their daily task. Customer loss of trust, customer frustration. The extreme here is, you see it pretty regularly when accounts are taken over. Last year, we saw it in some of the fast food restaurants. We also saw it in some of the retail sales over the holidays. Infrastructure. When you think about a massive bot attack, it's a variation of a denial of service attack. Really, it is massive numbers of transactions hitting your e-commerce site or your registration site, your registration application, if you will, and it's increasing the cost of your infrastructure. So if you're at a data center, you might, it might, push your data center over capacity. If you're a cloud vendor, if you're in the public cloud, you're going to have auto scaling, but that too is going to increase the cost. You have to pay for that auto scaling. So it can dramatically increase infrastructure costs. And in the survey, 48% of the respondents saw revenue losses as high as 10%. So you'll see that in the next slide. And then skewed marketing metrics. When when a marketing is going to look at all the web traffic hitting their site for the new product launch or the new thing that is for sale, but in reality that those metrics are generated fictitiously, artificially is a better word. So you get a sense for the true impact of a bot. So when we look at the different types of attacks, over here on the left-hand side, you see card fraud, account takeover, which is account fraud, inventory fraud. And now on the right side, you see the different levels of revenue impact. The dark blue and the light blue over on the far right side are the companies that saw revenue losses as anywhere from 6 to 10%. So if you track two of the more common types of attacks, you have account fraud and inventory fraud. This is a fairly significant impact in the business. The green is those folks that are losing 1% of the revenue, and then the dark blue and the light blue on the right side. So it is definitely impacting the business far more than people think. And the challenge you face is bot attacks are not, they are happening so commonly that it's just a cost of doing business. So they never really elevate to the level of visibility that, say, a ransomware attack is, or a data breach might bring. So what do we do to help you address this challenge? So if we take a step back and we think about what a bot is doing, it is it is trying to mask itself as a legitimate transaction, a shopping transaction, a financial services. It might be you logging into your financial services, financial management application. It might be the social media application that you're using or the dating application that you're using. So a bot is going to try and look like you, a real person. So that's what we need to separate, is that behavioral intent. So a bit of a repeat from yesterday, we have a patented technology called CQAI. It is a machine learning-based identity analysis tool that uses 3 different phases. The first phase, it looks at things like what the profile is. It looks at credentials that we have stored and collected over time that from data breaches. It then gets a little bit more sophisticated, looking at how the transaction is behaving. Is it coming from an odd location? Is it a very, very rapid form fill, far faster than a person can type? Is it coming in and using an older browser or rotating through user agent strings? Looking at those types of sophisticated behaviors and comparing it to machine-based models that we've developed over time of a real person. And then the last blue box there on the top is applying customization capability, customizing the 180 different rules for your environment, right? Each environment, whether it's retail, whether it's financial services, whether it's a large customer or a small customer, it's going to have a little bit different characteristics, and that's where the tailoring comes in. And what it spits out is a behavioral fingerprint. And that behavioral fingerprint is a collection of the credentials that are being used, the infrastructure that is being used, the tools that the attacker is using, and then the different behaviors. So that fingerprint is used to determine whether the transaction is legitimate or whether the transaction is malicious. And then you can take that fingerprint and use it to apply policy or you can take that fingerprint information and you can export it out to a different piece of your architecture for use by the fraud team, for example, or for use by the security team to enforce using a different component. And I'll talk about those elements in just a moment. So now, when you talk about tailoring it to your environment, the blue across the top are the things that are default or provided out of the box. So we've got a variety of different threat intel feeds that are provided. There are some security aggregations that of data that we provide, and then there are the different rules that we provide. All of those can be customized, the green on the bottom, right? So you can, if you are subscribing to a series of threat intelligence feeds that you would use to, that you're already using to research malicious bot activity, then we can input that into the product to enhance our own findings. And then the other two elements, the aggregator and the rules, can be customized as I described previously. And then the output would be the different policies that I can set, the mitigation efforts that I can set, or I can export the data to a component of your existing security or IT infrastructure. Now, when we talk about turning intent into a policy, so we've now gone through and talked a little bit about the manner in which we can separate malicious from legitimate transactions. How does this work? So it's really set up in a kind of a three-phased approach of discovery, detection, and then prevention. And so the discovery element is here. So when we're deployed, we are deployed in somewhere where we can see your e-commerce traffic. We're not going to look at your entire website. We're going to look at the applications that you want us to protect. And when I talk about applications, I'm talking about a website registration application, a login application, a shopping cart, your financial services, money management application, your dating profile or your social media profile. Those are what we call applications. And they can be a web application, a web form, or it can be an API. We don't care which, or it can be mobile. We don't care which of the three types of endpoints it is because of the way we are deployed. We don't require any agents or SDKs to collect the telemetry needed. We are doing it by looking at your network traffic. So we're going to you kind of map your entire attack surface. As you see here, this is kind of on the right-hand side. This is kind of a tree map, if you will, or a site map, if you will. We would tag the applications that we want to track and set policy on and do research on. Those tags are used throughout the discovery, detection, and prevention phases. And then we are going to be able to, because it's a software-based offering, we're going to be able to protect your endpoints regardless of where they've been deployed. You might have some that are deployed in the data center. You might have some that are deployed in the public cloud or a SaaS offering. We can cover any one of those three types of deployments. And I have an architecture slide that I'll cover a little bit later. So once you get that, once you've gone through and you've done the discovery phase, now the detection begins to kick in. So this is where a little bit more detail into the behavioral fingerprint. So you can't really see the mouse type very clearly, but the first piece is the different behaviors that you're going to be able to track. So, is it a repeated login, a number of repeated login attempts in an hour? Or is it a number of failed login? That's the behavior element that's in the fingerprint. The next is the credentials. Are the credentials that we are seeing sourced from a previous data breach? like the, a LinkedIn data breach or a Facebook data breach. We've collected a lot of those credentials. You can augment the credentials with your own set if you've already started collecting stolen credentials or compromised credentials. The infrastructure. So when we talk about infrastructure, this has become a very, very big business. You can, if you just Google on your own proxy, look for proxies, you'll find smart proxy, fine proxy, a variety of different commercially available commercial vendors who are selling compromised devices. So things like your garage door opener, Alexa devices, refrigerators, Comcast routers. The list is extensive. And so they will sell you access to these compromised IP addresses so that an attacker can distribute the attack and make it look like it's many different users coming from a particular location. You can set these proxies to appear to be coming only from the United States so that it looks geographically legitimate, or you can do it, in the opposite direction and be located in the U.S. and you can launch your attack against a UK-based luxury goods vendor, for example. So very sophisticated. So we're here too. We're tracking and collecting a lot of the information on those bulletproof proxy vendors, as we call them. And you can see how the infrastructure would be used here. And then the last one is the tools. So tools are things like Open Bullet or Black Bullet or Sniper NBA, the tools that are readily available that are used to create these attacks and manage the attacks. And so these are the different elements that are collected and used in the behavioral fingerprint. And really the value of the behavioral fingerprint is that, it will track the attacker as they try to retool and respond to the prevention techniques that we throw at them. So it's very powerful in that manner. So you don't have to necessarily keep changing policy and modifying your efforts to prevent the attack as they retool and respond to your prevention techniques. So let's talk a little bit about the prevention aspect, the third phase. There are the classic blocking techniques. You can rate limit the traffic. So rate limiting can be used for legitimate bots. So there obviously are a fair number of legitimate bots, as we know, web crawlers, aggregators that, if you're a financial services company, you might have a series of partner APIs that allow other financial services applications or financial management applications to tie in. So you can rate limit the legitimate bots and block the bad bots. We can do something called honey trap. This is very interesting. It's a deception technique. So you can set up a honey trap that will feed the attacker what appears to be a legitimate response, but they're actually not succeeding in their attack. So you might ask, well, why would I want to do that? The reason is it allows you to put some guardrails around the attacker, if you will. Remember that the attackers have a very, very sophisticated set of tools that they're able to use, right? And so when they get met with resistance, they can modify their behaviors. They can do a variety of different things, switch browsers, they can switch locations, those types of things. And so So by giving them a deceptive response, they think that they have been successful. They might stay in that lane, if you will. So that is something that is an option that you can implement right out of the box. And then the final thing is you can look at the data, analyze the data, looking at the attack patterns, looking at the request and response patterns, and make fine-tune adjustments. All right, so when we talk, obviously we're not the only vendor in the market. There will be a question when there's always a question of how we are different than, say, Akamai Bot Manager or Cloudflare or some of the other CDN players or some of the other dedicated bot prevention players like Perimeter X or Cequence Security. So let's go through some of the differentiators. So the biggest one really, and there are many different ways you can take advantage of this, but the biggest differentiator is the way in which we are able to protect the applications. We don't require you to implement JavaScript into every different web application that you want to protect, and we don't require an SDK to be integrated into your mobile application. This is huge, right? So if you think about those two requirements, those two requirements put an additional burden. They do several things. They put additional burden on your development team and your QA team, right? So you have to build that into cycles. And yes, you can automate a lot of this, but there's always going to be a bit more work for the development team when a new version comes out or when the attackers figure out how the JavaScript works or the SDK works. The vendor that you're using, whether it's Shape, Perimeter X, or Akamai, is going to have to modify the JavaScript and the SDK. You're going to have to verify those two elements as you bring it into your development cycle. Development is going to have to integrate it. Development is going to have to do QA and so on, right? So it's a significant differentiator for us. And it leads to a couple of other ones. I'm not going to go through every one of these. You can read all about it on the URL there at the bottom. Some of the other elements that really do have come up recently that make a big difference is the API protection. So you can't integrate a piece of JavaScript code or an SDK into an API. An API is stateless. It's a long command that includes the entire transaction. So because we don't require that JavaScript or that SDK, we can protect your APIs that are back-ending the web form in the same manner that we can protect the web form. And what attackers have figured out is they can go directly to the APIs. They don't need to script the web form. They can go directly to the API and execute the attack more efficiently and faster. And then the other two pieces that I want to call out is the open extensible platform. We talked about that a little bit. You have access to all the data, all the policies. You don't need to enlist professional services to execute modifications or respond to an attack. And it can be deployed anywhere. It's a Kubernetes-based application that is available as a SaaS offering. It's available to deploy in your data center, or you can deploy it as a privately managed cloud application in AWS, Azure, or GCP. All right, so let's talk a little bit about a customer before and after. So this particular customer sells sports apparel, one of the largest sports apparel and shoe sneaker vendors in the world. Before we were installed, They would have to deactivate their mobile application because of the volume of attacks they would get hit with. They would have to put customers into a waiting room. The queuing feature that is available on some of the CDNs. They would have to scale their servers by 10x. And even with that scaling, their site would periodically go down. The bot operators would brag about their success. They would obviously get lambasted by their customers on social media, and this would happen all the time. Now they can roll out a new shoe at any time without incurring any of the negative impacts that I just went through. And you can kind of scroll through and read through some of the value that we're bringing to the table. Their goal was to be able to launch a sneaker at any time, in any one of their global websites, and they can do that now without worry. All right, so we're getting close to the time frame. David had pointed out that there is a free trial available. I'm going to leave it here and ask David to come back online, and we can start answering some of your questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation, Matt. We do have some questions for you from the audience. Let's see. The first one here from Fabienne, who's asking, essentially, how does the platform stay current as these cyber threats continue to evolve, as the bot attacks change over time?
Sure. Like many different security organizations, we have a threat research team. So there's a series of threat researchers and data scientists that are working with all of our customers. You're not in this battle alone. We have a threat monitoring service that you can subscribe to. And even if you don't subscribe to that, we are still always learning from the information that we see from our customers, and we're putting that back into the product. So you can rest assured that we're doing our best to try and keep up with the threat landscape and share that information with all of our customers to improve their security posture.
Excellent. And then next question, how's the platform deployed? Kind of what's the architecture?
Sure. It's a modular architecture. The machine learning element is deployed out of band, if you will. So what we do is there's a network component that is deployed that takes a copy of your application traffic you want to protect, and it sends it to the CQAI machine learning engine. And those findings are then sent back to the network element if you want to enforce policy, or those findings are sent to your existing security infrastructure for analysis or enforcement by a firewall, a WAF, or some other element. It is available as a SaaS offering, so that's the easiest way to get started, and that's what we do with the free trial. Is we just redirect some of your traffic that you want to evaluate us against to our SaaS offering, and then it's directed back to its origin or its destination. That's the easiest way. It can also be deployed in your data center, or it can be deployed in any one of the cloud environments if you want to manage the entire infrastructure on your own. So very, very flexible deployment options.
Excellent. And then I know we're running out of time here, so just kind of final question I wanted to ask you is, if folks go and sign up for the free trial of Bot Defense, kind of what's the next steps? What happens after they sign up for that? How does that work?
Sure. We're going to give you a call and get a sense for the volume of traffic and what you want to evaluate us against, and kind of scope that out. And then, if you agree with, the direction that the conversation goes, the next step would be to, like I said, make a few modifications to your CDN or your traffic your inbound traffic routing, and we take a copy of the traffic. We're not going to jeopardize your infrastructure, and we're going to then provide you with the findings of the 30-day free trial.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have on this deep dive session. But Matt, it's been great having you back on. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
And of course, thank you to Cequence Security for supporting the event today. And thank you to our audience for joining us. You all attended day one. You indicated you wanted more information on the Cequence Security solution. And here it is. Hopefully we answered all your questions. We encourage you to check out the handouts tab there and use the link at the top to try out the Cequence Bot Defense solution for yourself in a free trial. If you believe this solution can help you out, we encourage you to do that. Either way, we hope that you'll join us on our upcoming Discovery Day deep dive sessions happening throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.